Hi guys, welcome back to Tuning Python. My name is Riti and in this tutorial we'll be concentrating on classes and objects. Let's get started with classes, okay? Now classes are what I call cookie cutters. Now like how cookie cutters help you make cookies, classes help you make objects. Now classes have something within them called methods, and methods in other words are functions, and these functions help you manipulate the variables, and variables in classes are data specific to each and every object. Okay, let me give you an example. For example, there's an object like student. Okay, the student will be having a name, and that name is a variable that is specific to that object. Okay, now let's say classes are sort of like symmetries. Why? Because they don't have life, they're static. Okay, so let's move on to objects. Objects are instances of classes. I call them cookies. Like cookie cutters and cookies are related, exactly like how classes help you make objects. Okay, so now these objects have handles which are in hex, and hex is a language we don't understand. Only the computers and machines understand hex. Okay, but they have handles, and you need to address the objects with the help of these handles, exactly like how variables have handles. Now I like to arrange my objects in arrays, and it's easier to manage it if you have objects in arrays. Now let's move on to variables and methods. Variables. Each instance has its own variables. Okay. Now methods typically help you manipulate the variables or value inside variables. I mentioned this before, just like how methods are actually functions which help you manipulate and work to change the value inside a variable. Okay. Now methods and functions within classes, they work on variables, and there's a constructor and function which is always called while you're creating an object. Okay, this constructor in Python is def init, which is def underscore init and underscore again, and that init stands for initialization. Now let's move on to the singleton. Singleton is this special type of class, I would say, that helps you create only one object. Let me give you an example. Now inside a school there are many classrooms, there are many students, there are many teachers. Okay, and all of them are objects scattered around. Okay, where do you store them? In the school. School is like the main object holding many of these tiny objects. Okay, so the singleton is this main object. In this example, the school. Okay, so let's move on to the computer so that I can show you all of these examples I just explained. So guys, let's jump straight into the program, and I've already opened PyCharm and created a new file. So let's go. Now right here I have a piece of code which I've taken from one of my longest programs. So let me explain. Okay, now there's this show called America's Got Talent, and that is one of my favorite shows. Okay, now I thought about it, and I thought of it as a wonderful example of classes and objects. So that's what I'm doing right now. I took a piece of that code and I'm going to explain that bit. Okay, so let's get started. So I have two classes right here. Okay, judges and contestants, and I have my singleton here and one object. Okay, so the class here is the first class called judges, and in one of my previous tutorials I have mentioned how to create a class and all the important things you need to remember while creating a class. So yeah, in this I'll just be explaining about the two main things that classes have, which are methods, in other words functions, and variables. Okay, so here I have named the class judges, and we have the constructor over here. As I mentioned it earlier, we call the constructor while objects are being created, well, object creation. So yeah, right after that, inside brackets you can see inside brackets over here you can see some variables. I put self comma in name, so the judges are going to have names obviously. So here the variables which hold the data are specific to each object. Okay, so the variable here holds the data, which is the name, and it's specific to each and every judge. Okay, that means each and every judge is going to have a specific name and it will be special to that object. Okay, so yes, and that is one variable I have for this class. And let's move on to the method or function. So now, how to write a method? It's exactly like how you write a function. Okay, you write def, define over here. You write the name of the method or function, and inside you write self. Okay, now this is the input. This is not input, it's just a bucket which is going to catch all the information you're going to send from the program. Okay, so yeah, and here we don't have to put anything specific, it's just self. And this code is going to determine if the player wins. So in this function, I made a variable called randomer, which is going to generate random numbers and return random numbers. Okay, so this is the class which has a variable and a function. Okay, so moving on to my next class, which is Contestants. It's pretty much the same thing. It has a method which is just going to print some things, and it's going to just have some variables and all that. So yeah, moving on to my Singleton. My Singleton is it's like the main thing, like the season, the name of the show and all that. So here I have the object, which is AGT season 12. I've called the particular class over here and I've named the season 12. Okay, now we'll be having many judges, we'll be having many contestants, we'll be having many hosts, but what is going to hold all that? What object is going to hold all those objects within it? It's the Singleton. Okay, so Singleton has arrays. Both the arrays will be having judges and contestants. So that's how it's going to hold everything inside this. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial. I have classes and objects and methods and variables inside them. I hope you understood.